Good evening, everyone. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. I'm your host, Joe Abadi. Thank you, Jordan, Chelsea, and Susie for helping me put the show together. Thank you, the viewers at home who have joined us tonight. As always, I want to thank our sponsors who make this show possible: Motion Pro, Vintco, Full Circle Racing, Racer X, VMX Magazine, the International Motocross Museum, Preston Petty Products, and ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. My guest tonight, very interesting, something a little bit different. He owns one of the largest dealerships, motorcycle dealerships in Southern California. Langston Motorsports is located in Perris. The building is nearly 30,000 square feet. In fact, I think it's bigger than that. We're going to find out in a minute. It is home to Kawasaki, KTM, Suzuki, just to name a few. And as far as gear, helmets, goggles, boots, they represent just about every manufacturer there is. If that wasn't enough to keep things going, Gerald holds a motorcycle event, a show every year. That one is coming up shortly on November 11th. I want to thank Gerald Langston for being my guest tonight. Gerald, thank you for being here. Pleasure. Let me ask you, Gerald, is that building 30,000 square feet or is it bigger than that by now?
Quite honestly, I don't know, because we keep adding units on the back to store stuff. So I've sort of lost count, but it's in excess of 30, I'd say.
I would think so. And you have there not only motorcycles, but other different types of off-road vehicles as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, in the part of the world we are, races are huge. The desert isn't far away. And like especially now, it starts ramping up this weekend's Camp Razor. So we do a lot of Polaris razors. The downside is they take up it's the size of a car, so it takes up a lot of room, which is another reason why we have to keep moving the storage and shipping and receiving and everything down as we add more units on to the shop.
Okay. As you know, we're going to be talking more about Langston Motorsports. I just want to give the people the real reason why we kind of got over here today was you have an event coming up, and we're going to be talking about this throughout the show. But you have an event coming up on November 11th. This takes place right at Langston Motorsports on Illinois Avenue in Perris, the annual bike show. I guess I should thank you first of all, Gerald. You know, you gave me my first paying job as an MC 3 years ago.
I thought you were like internationally famous, so I threw a number out.
Well, I wasn't at that point, and I wouldn't consider myself not internationally famous just yet. But because you did give me my first paying job, it gave me an idea of how much I was worth on a microphone for an afternoon. So I do want to thank you for that. But enough about me. Tell me how many years now you've been doing the annual Langston bike show.
Well, this will be our 7th year. And as you've seen, since you've been the MC, it grows every year. We're pretty much getting to capacity right now.
You take up just about the whole parking lot.
Yeah, and we last year we took over the cul-de-sac and part of the road as well.
Well, you get a huge turnout down there every year, Gerald, and it just keeps on growing. Also, you wind up getting a nice guest list too. I mean, if there are people out there who are after autographs or anything like that, I mean, this was last year. Look at you got Rex Staten, Brock Glover, Tommy Croft. You always get a real nice mix of guys that come down, and they show bikes too. A lot of guys bring their bikes.
Yeah, especially like Tommy and who else? Gary Chaplin, Cody Schott. We brought Cody in. He can't make it this year, but we want to get some younger people involved. You know, I know, you know, time passes quickly. The other day I heard McGrath's name mentioned, and somebody said to the kid, well, you know Jeremy McGrath, and he was like, I have no idea who that is. So a lot of the people that, you know, we're appealing to, the younger generation don't know or know of. So
Yeah.
if we can get a younger generation, and Cody Schock built a 70s CR250s, and he proudly displayed that. So the people in the shop were like, "Oh, we know Cody, and we know of him."
Yeah. And you know what, Gerald, you bring up an interesting point too, because I actually thought about having Cody on this show to sort of draw in a little bit of a younger crowd. He is a vintage enthusiast. He's doing a great job right now on the circuit of Supercross. And yeah, we need some younger blood like that. And when you say a guy doesn't recognize who Jeremy McGrath is, I mean, that's not that long ago, really. Maybe
No.
the older guys like you and I. But to anybody who's a real Supercross enthusiast, I mean, we're talking about the 90s, even early 2000s.
Yeah. And especially like, with Marty Tripes.
Yeah.
He looks nothing like he did when he raced. So, people come in
Right.
like, who's that guy? He seems to be popular. No, that's Marty Tripes. Wow, that's Marty Tripes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And while
it's
I'm on,
really important to keep that going.
while I'm
Go ahead,
on,
Gerald. I'll get back to this little plug.
I was going to say, while I'm on Marty, Marty will be catering for the VIP guests again this year. He missed a year last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he had a huge grill set up there one year, I remember.
Yeah, he'll
And
be doing the
he
same.
does quite a good job there. Now I can get back to plugging one of my sponsors. ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. Paul Parkinson Sr. does an absolutely amazing job on just about anything you want to have reproduced. Presently, he's got one of the hottest items on the market, the silencer for the 1973, 74 Honda CR250 and 125. Get a hold of Paul Parkinson Sr. at ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. Gerald, he would be a good guy for you to be in contact with too. I know you have a lot of restorations that you do. Parts are not so plentiful anymore, and he might be a big help to you, Paul Parkinson Sr.
Well, I wish I'd known about Paul before this, especially that pickle silencer, because I was the guy that paid $1,200 for a pickle silencer on eBay lately. Must be a world record.
It could be. I don't want to tell you what he's selling the replicas for. I have one here, and they are exact replicas. But look, we've overpaid before, and sometimes that's just what happens. So we'll get back to that in just a minute. How many people do you have working there at Langston's?
It varies by season. We slow down in the summer months because we have triple-digit heat here, and right now is when we pick up again. As I mentioned earlier, with the desert season opening up now, we start getting really busy now for the next 8 months or so. But in the summer months, we drop down to 37 people. By November, we'll be in excess of 40, 41, 42 people.
Wow. And how many? I mean, the service department must go up and down as well, depending on the season.
It's actually steadier than you would think.
It is.
I think people sort of think, well, I should bring my razor in for a service before the season starts. So it seems to be steady all year round. Even during COVID, when the rest of the shop was doing really well, the workshop sort of did the same. It's a very constant in the workshop.
Well, it's probably a lengthy story. It's one we all went through, but you were one of the few shops in Southern California that actually stayed open during COVID.
Yeah, we did. At first we did the look. If we close, we're going to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
So there was that curbside pickup loophole that we used at first, but luckily I think it was the AMA or somebody lobbied in Parliament that motorcycles were an essential business. People commute to work and back on them.
Yes.
And so they allowed they allowed motorcycle dealerships to open up, but we had already been doing the backdoor thing just to keep our head above water.
Yeah, and how long did that go on for, Gerald?
The whole pandemic, as I call it, must have been 2 years or so, before.
Yeah.
And then what happened in the early days, and the reason we were so busy during the pandemic is the government was handing out free money. Stay at home, here's free money. So people came in the shop and they bought off-road bikes and razors, and they went and rode in the hills. So it did us the world of good. And we often talk about it in the family. We feel sorry because we know people that lost their businesses during this time. We, on the other hand, profited from it. But back then there was a supply shortage. And when some of these other dealerships were closed, the manufacturer would call us and say, hey, I've got a truck at XYZ dealership, and they're closed. Do you want their product? Hell yeah, send it right over. So that's another reason we did well. But then right now, there's no more free money and the market's flooded. So we're back to normal.
How many days a week are you open, Gerald?
7 days a week. That's why we have such a big staff, because you've got to have sort of the rollover. You've got to have basically we have people that work Friday, Saturday, off Sunday, Monday, and we have people that work Sunday, Monday, off Friday, Saturdays. So that's why it's a larger staff.
And there used to be an old, well, I don't know if it was an old expression throughout all of the automobile industry, but I do remember a dealership that used to say, come for the price, you'll stay for the service. And your service department is very, very big. And that's open 7 days a week as well?
It is. Sundays are more for quick services, tire changes, stuff like that. We don't work on major jobs on Sunday. We have a skeleton crew, and if the guy's got a flat or he's broken down, we'll go and pick him up, or if somebody just wants an oil change or something, chain adjusted, we'll do simple, quick things on a Sunday. But the rest of the week, when the whole crew's here, we tackle the big jobs, and we do a lot of big jobs. We do. You won't believe how many people roll their razors and crash their razors and jump off a cliff with their razors, and like frame swaps are the order of the day on a razor, which is a huge job. Yeah.
Well, Gerald, we're going to take a little commercial break. We will be right back with more Gerald Langston.
Motocross struck America, coming from Europe like a lightning bolt, striking the hearts and minds of people all across the country and the world. Battles of intense racing and cutting rivalries with loyalty to brands and heroes intensified as years of blood, sweat, and dirt flew through the minds of those memories of champions as they wrestled their machines through almost impossible tracks. But where are those past champions? And where are their bikes? Terry Good, an ex-pro motocross racer, has made it his life mission to honor these heroes and the bikes they rode to stardom. We raced, we rode, we lived and breathed motocross. Go back in time and relive those moments, now preserved for the first time ever in the world's first museum dedicated to the history of motocross. Our new building is in the gate. Help us get a great start and you can be part of history. Go to internationalmotocrossmuseum.org and become a part of our team.
Thank Terry Good for helping out here with us at Vintage Motocross Q&A. And keep your eyes peeled. There will be an announcement coming up very, very soon, a big announcement about the International Motocross Museum. My guest today is Gerald Langston from Langston Motorsports. And if the name Langston sounds familiar to you, it's because he is the father of course, world champion Grant Langston, who was a 125cc world champion in 2000, I believe that was, Gerald?
Yeah, 2000 world champion, yeah.
And he went on to win a string of national championships here in America in 125, 250, and 450cc competition. So quite an accomplished racer. He was just inducted into the AMA Hall of Fame. Gerald, it's a long way from Durban, South Africa to Perris, California.
Yeah.
How did that all take place? Did Grant win these races and just want to come to America? How did that happen?
We started off motocross because a friend of mine who owed me some money had a bike and he was going to sell it, and I said, "Well, you owe me money, give me the bike." And we went to a BMX track, and Grant loved it. And this guy said, "Hey, they have a thing called kiddie motocross. You should go down. It's really cool. There's a clubhouse in the middle of the track, and they serve ice cold beers, and you can stand on the side of the track and yell at your kid and drink cold beer. So this is great,
And this is in South Africa?
In Durban, yeah, Durban, South Africa. and that's how it started. And then it was like he was on a QR Honda, and the PW50s were the bike to have. So we got a PW50, and then he started. He went from being lapped to winning races, and then he started dominating every class he entered, and it sort of got to a point where he said, "I want to be a world champion one day." And I said to him, if you can beat anyone, anywhere, at any time, we'll go to Europe and have a swing at it. When he was on 80s, he was dominating so much. He won every race, but we were at a national. We were starting him backwards, and we were letting the whole field go around the first corner before setting off, which pissed the other fathers and mothers off no end. That we were humiliating them like that. But then we got a special dispensation from Motorsports South Africa to move him. There was like an intermediate class, they called it the high school class, where you rode 125s. They had a little restrictor in the intake, and then you went to the seniors. The seniors, you were meant to be 16 or older. So at 14, Motorsports South Africa gave him a dispensation to ride in the seniors, and by the time he just turned 15, he was blowing the professional motocrossers in South Africa off and winning the national. So he was selected to go over, and there's a thing called the Coupe de I can't pronounce it. It's French. It's the Youth Cup, like the Youth Cup of the Nation, Coupe de l'Avenir, something like that. And when we were there, Harry Everts came over, and he I always remember he's always used to have a smoke hanging out the side of his mouth, and he introduced himself, and he said, "Hey, Gerald, your boy is special." I said, I think so. He said, "No, he's special. You got to bring him to Europe." I said, "Well, that's the plan." He said, "Well, I've started this youth team, but I've already got 3 riders. But if you can get help from South Africa or help yourself, he can be on the team. We'll, use the motor." They were getting a big semi truck and all that. So you can use our facilities, and we'll help you get, sponsorship like from Alpine Stars and stuff like that. And so when he was just before 15 and a half, we sold everything up and we moved to Europe. And it didn't go very well at first. He wasn't qualifying. He was homesick. And you probably heard this before, but he said, "I don't think I can be world champion. I'm homesick. I want to go home." And I said to him, "There is no home. We're here to stay now. You've got to make it work." We did go home for a week, just visit family and friends, and then we came back again. And out of the blue, and when I say he was struggling, he wasn't qualifying for the Grand Prix. He wasn't even qualifying. I think he sort of choked. And then out of the blue at the French Grand Prix, he qualified 6th. And, then the phone started ringing, and we were running out of money. And Kees van der Ven approached us, and he said, "Look, if Grant signs with me, KTM have guaranteed me factory material." And we were just like, "Okay, well, I'm buying the bikes right now. Will we get free bikes?" And he said, "Yeah, you'll get free bikes." "Well, how many?" "Well, as many as you need." "Wow. And what about, all the parts and things?" "Yeah, you'll get the parts. So he wasn't on the official factory KTM team, but he was on a satellite team that was getting, the factory material. And then same thing out of the blue in the German Grand Prix, he went 1-1. Same thing out of the blue. So the phone was really ringing after that, and people were starting to, you talk about your first gig, getting paid. People were offering us money. It's like, we can buy a house with that kind of money, So, and then the next year he pretty much dominated the 125 GPs. He was taking bets with people how much he would win the race by, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we'd always wanted to come to the States, and fortunately, one of the people that was after Grant was Mitch Payton, and so were KTM. They were, and Red Bull had just tied up with KTM, and they wanted to break into the American market. So we almost had a bidding war, but between the two of them. And out of loyalty, we stayed with KTM. They paid all the visas and essential support visas and athlete with exceptional ability visa, whatever. So that's how we got to come over here.
Yeah, I had Grant on as a guest. It's been quite a while ago. It's probably a couple of years now, but I remember him telling me the story about KTM and Mitch Payton and how he really had a tough time making that decision because he was so loyal to Mitch, and Mitch loved Grant and wanted him on the team, and that he actually saved, I think it was a fax that Mitch sent him saying that he was officially on the team at Pro Circuit, and he saved it for many, many years. And later on, he went back and had to do something with Mitch. And anyway, it was an incredible relationship and a real fabulous show of how loyal Grant was to the people that really took care of him on the way up. So getting back to the dealership, when did you buy the dealership in Perris? When did that happen?
Well, we used to have a hop-up shop on the entrance to the Lake Elsinore track, and that did really well. But there's only so much you can grow unless you become a multi-line dealer. And West Coast Motorsports came up for sale. It was in dire straits, and we bought it, but the timing was all wrong. It was the beginning of it was in 2009. We thought things couldn't get any worse, and they did. And this place was already in deep trouble, and we were just sinking our savings, everything, just to keep our heads above water. And at that stage, the deal was Grant put in seed money, but his focus was to stay racing. His mom and myself would run the dealership, and we struggled for many years, and then eventually we turned it around, and it's doing really well now.
And that's the building that you're in now. How many square feet was it when you? No, you had the one at the Lake Elsinore track first.
Okay, sorry. So West Coast Motorsports was also in Perris, but it was in a dump of a building. When I say a dump in a building, you'd be trying to close a deal with a customer, and a rat would run past you. So it was a case of we got to get out. And then we saw this place being built on the side of the freeway, so we jumped into this. And the guy that sold us West Coast told us he just signed a 5-year lease, and he told us that he'd spoken to the landlord, and if the new owners wanted out, they could get out. The landlord said, "Show me this in writing," and we couldn't. But we weren't going to stay there. It was such a dump. So that was another problem we had. For 5 years, we were paying rent here and rent there.
Oh,
so we moved here in the beginning of 2010.
2010. So you're there 13 years now.
Yep.
How many units do you move a month? I mean, I know that we talked earlier about your sales force and how many people you have in your service department. How many units would you say you sell a month? New bikes, new side by sides.
It's also seasonal. There's been times. And there's all sort of mitigating circumstances. If the lending banks tighten up, you don't sell as much. If they loosen up, you sell more. So we've had anywhere between 275 and around 100. It's quite a big fluctuation. Seasonal,
Right.
new bikes come out, the banks loosen up, all sorts of things.
So you have Suzuki, KTM, Polaris. Do they have their own banks, Gerald? Are they financing themselves, or are you going through like a third-party bank, a local bank from California? How does that work?
Bit of both. For example, Yamaha do their own financing, but sometimes the Yamaha deal might not be as attractive as a third-party bank.
Right.
So we'll go with the third-party bank, and sometimes people use what do you call it? Their own banks. Where they get their own loan through their own banks.
Oh yeah, like a credit union or something like that.
Yeah. So they'll walk in and they'll say, I'm approved up until this amount. But mostly people. We've even had somebody come in and buy a bike on an EDD card. So,
really?
Yeah.
Well, we could talk about a lot of things, Gerald. We're going to take a commercial break right now to hear from our sponsor, Vinco. We'll be right back with more Gerald Langston.
Vinco, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with Vinco rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vinco air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vinco.com to check out the air shocks and all that Vinco has to offer to help you get back on track and to keep that ride going.
$2,000 products in their catalog you want to check out at Vinco.com. They've got rod kits. They've also got top-end kits just like this, including complete cranks, brand new, out of the box. So doesn't make much sense rebuilding cranks anymore. Gerald, you probably use some parts from Vinco on your restorations, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How many bikes do you have now? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, the first one I did where I found out about Vinco was when I did my Ossa Phantom. The badge on the tank, they're shot. They're always shot. And somebody told me, Vinco make one. You can't tell the difference. You'd swear it was OEM. So that's how I got to know about them. So, yeah, I've bought a lot of parts from them over the years.
Yeah, and you usually unveil some one of your beautiful bikes. This is from a couple of years ago, this HL 500. I think last year you brought out a KX
500.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
What's on tap for this year? What are you going to unveil?
I'm doing another HL. This one's going to be white, and it's going to have the Aberg type left-hand exhaust that came out just behind the back shock. I'm actually going to be building 4 HLs, all different combinations and parts and things. But this year I'll unveil the white HL, and I've got a 77 Penton 250 MC5 that I'll unveil.
Okay. And you know what the great thing about the show is, Gerald? Here's a good example right here. This guy's got a beautiful Kawasaki triple 2-stroke. It isn't only about the off-road bikes and the vintage motocross bikes that you and I love. The Langston Motorcycle Show has a wide variety of classes. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have trophies for, and I'm going to forget some classes. We recently introduced unrestored class because people said, I haven't got around to restoring the bike, but it's all there. And some people would say, I've been restoring this for 2 years, but it's not finished. Well, bring it anyway. People love to chat about, well, hey, I've got that, I can get that part, or you can get this part from here. So we've got an unrestored class. We have obviously best in show, which can go to anything. We have a street bike class. We have an ATV class. We obviously the dirt bike class. We might even have a road racing class. So we're trying to, as you say, we're trying to be known as more than just a dirt bike show.
Yeah.
So we really try and encourage people with street bikes. And I mean, you look at that Kawasaki Triple, that thing was mint. He might have won best in show, I think.
I believe that I did have this on my list for best in show.
Yeah.
Bike was absolutely phenomenal. The chrome, the fit, the finish, the paint, everything about this bike was just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're trying to encourage, more of that. We're reaching out to like the BSA club and the AJS club and the Norton club, those kind of people as well. Let them know that they're more than welcome. Well, in fact, we'd love to have them.
Yeah, and you know what? It brings out some of the local talent, the legendary racers. We were talking a little bit earlier about somebody not knowing necessarily who Jeremy McGrath was, but here you have two incredible Hall of Fame riders, David Bailey, Jeff Ward. So you always get somebody like that comes down to your event as well.
Yeah, I've got to confirm. I met David at the Carlsbad reunion, and he said he would be on again for this year, but we'd all had a couple of beers at the Carlsbad reunion, so I must just check with him. But every year, and the crowd gets bigger because sometimes somebody we had a year before or 2 years before will now come to us and say, hey, is it okay if I, come to the show? So the celebrity thing gets bigger all the time.
It does. And you know what, Gerald, now that you mention it, you and I were, or maybe it was Grant. It was either me or you or Grant and we were talking to Danny Laporte, and Danny Laporte didn't know about the show, and he says he is definitely going to be there this year. Yeah,
I must follow up with a few people from that Carlsbad thing. I was there when we talked to Danny.
Yeah.
I think it was Grant, myself, and you.
Yeah, I think it was. So, I've got an event coming up in January. If you are in the East Coast, at the frozen tundra in January, if you want something to do, go out to the Potomac Vintage Riders 2024 Swap Meet and Bike Show. That happens at the York Fairgrounds on Sunday, January 21st. Get there early, and you should go and sign up now. Last year, all the booths were gone. It is indoor, obviously, January in Pennsylvania. And it's a fabulous event. Sue Fish will be there this year, along with some other legendary riders. I will be there again. This is another event that I eventually got paid for because my first break in the business was through Gerald Langston. Gerald, it's a family affair at Langston Motorsports. Amanda, your beautiful wife, works there too?
Yeah, she's the accounting side of things. Keeps us in check with the spending. And then my daughter Whitney does all the DMV stuff, and Grant and I are on the floor.
So Grant's down there every day doing sales as well?
Wouldn't say every day.
Well, not sales, but
no, he's taken over what we order, how much we order, what we order. There's always order periods going on, and so he's with the sales. People say to me, "Have you got one of these on the floor?" I mean, I can check, but Grant will know, and also he's in touch more with what's coming, what people are asking for, etc., etc. I'm more involved in the workshop. I come from a mechanical background. He doesn't, so I tend to spend more time in the workshop. He's more time on the sales floor.
Yeah, Gerald, I know that you had a previous engagement right before this interview, and you only had so much time for today, but I do want to have you back because you had a little bit of a racing career as well, didn't you?
I did. I was the guy that worked all week to pay for the fuel to go racing, and then crashed, and then suffered all week only to go to the next race and use my paycheck to pay for the parts that broke in the last race. I was that guy.
Okay. Well, yeah, like many of us,
Yes.
many of us. So
Yes.
Here's what I'd like to do, Gerald. If I can get you to commit to come back in the very near future, we'll talk more about that incredible journey the Langston family took around the world for Grant to become a world champion. I did have a conversation with an old friend of yours who you mentioned in Chicago, Harry Everett, how the Everett family and the Langston family worked so closely together. And I'm sure everyone would want to hear those stories, Gerald. So can I call you? You know what? Maybe we'll talk at the event. Let's just plug that one more time. Let's not forget one of the reasons why we're really here, the Langston Annual Bike Show, November 11th. That's in Perris. It starts at what time, Gerald? 10 o'clock in the morning, you advise people be there, or much earlier than that?
It's open to the public from 9 to 2.
Right.
But the exhibitors, we like them to be here around 7ish, so we can set up. As you can imagine, that's a very narrow thoroughway through there, and with everyone's trucks and bikes and unloading, and we'll have staff to help people load up. We get better every year at it. So if exhibitors could, get here around 7, this year we'll be more organized. We'll have demarcated spots, and the staff will be able to direct them and help them unload. If I could just put one little plug in.
Absolutely, Gerald.
It happens every year. The regulars don't enter. So we don't know how many people we're going to get, and how much catering to do. And you'll phone them and you say, "You're not coming this year?" "Yeah, I come every year." "Well, you haven't entered." I'm going to be there. So if people could just go onto our website and enter, it makes life a lot easier for all of us.
And it's free.
It's free for spectators, free for exhibitors. We feed them, we give them trophies. It's a fun day.
Gerald, I'm looking forward to being there. I want to thank you for jumping in and being my guest today. We'll talk more at the annual bike show about you coming back, and we'll make a special time for that where we could really talk about something other than the bike show and, of course, Langston Motorsports, your career, Grant's career, and how that all transpired, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Gerald, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Gerald. Gerald Langston has been my guest this evening, and I can assure you when I have him back, we are going to be talking a whole lot more about his world travels with his son, Grant, recent AMA Hall of Fame inductee, world champion, multi-time national champion. And he had an absolutely incredible career, but the sacrifices that Gerald and Amanda Langston made for Grant to be able to travel, and the sponsors, and so much that went on in their lives, it's an absolutely fascinating story. We're going to take a little bit of a break here, and then we'll be back to wrap it up at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Hey, it's Joe Abadi for Vintage Motocross Q&A. When you're replacing a cylinder or a gasket or doing a top end on your bike, many times it's very, very difficult to get to the nuts that are on the base. And you want to be sure that you torque those evenly whenever you change a top end. Motion Pro has come up with this great tool. It's the torque adapter, okay? You can put any size wrench in there and you can tighten it up. On the back is a 3/8 drive. You can put your torque wrench in there, get the wrench on the nut that's on the base of your cylinder, and make sure everything is torqued evenly. This is a great tool. I have one in the shop. We use it all the time. It comes with instructions as well. Go see your local dealer or get to motionpro.com. And don't forget, go over to Vintage Motocross Q&A to get a 20% discount on all Motion Pro tools. As we just said there in the commercial, there is a special still going on, 20% off everything across the board at Motion Pro, except custom-made cables. When you go to checkout, put in MP, MP9135. That's MP9135. Thank you, Tom McAllister, longtime sponsor of Vintage Motocross Q&A. Still has a wonderful special going on, 18, 19, and 21-inch rims. Tom will lace them, true them, new spokes, new nipples. Send up your hubs. He will blast them and powder coat them. Send you back a brand new set of wheels for your bike, $775 only from Full Circle Racing. Thank you, Mike Chamberlain, for being a supporter of Vintage Motocross Q&A. If you'd like to be a supporter of our show, you can for a small financial contribution. I'll be happy to put up a poster on the wall behind me. We can even mention a business that you might have. But Mike Chamberlain, been behind us for a while. Thank you, Mike Chamberlain. Racer X Magazine. I think I got all of our sponsors in. I am on my way tomorrow night, Thursday night, to Ruther Glen, Virginia. I will be at the Moto Barn. George Ackerman is having a spectacular event down there, open house at the Moto Barn. I will be there along with Don Kadowski, Martina Faltova-Cope, Warren Reed, Steve Wise, Barry Higgins, and I think there are a couple of more guests that are on the roster. But I'll be down there taking a red eye on Thursday night down to Ruther Glen, Virginia, so I could be with all my moto buds on the East Coast. I want to thank Gerald Langston once again for being my guest tonight. Don't forget, if you're within the Perris, California area, Southern California, you want to go to a great bike show, November 11th, Langston Motorsports. This will be my third year there. Always a wonderful time. That wraps it up for Vintage Motocross Q&A. My guest next week, it could be Dave Boydston. Dave Boydston from AMS, been around a long time, racing since the 60s, and has done so much to grow the sport of vintage motocross. We're going back and forth. I hope I can tighten up with him in time on the show for next week. But for right now, this is Joe Abadi. Thanks for watching Vintage Motocross Q&A.